For almost 5 decades, Voyager 1 has been traveling farther from Earth than any spacecraft humans have ever built. Launched in 1977, it was never designed to survive this long. Its original mission was simple: study Jupiter and Saturn, gather scientific data, and eventually disappear into the darkness. But Voyager kept going. Today, it is moving through interstellar space, billions of kilometers from Earth, carrying a fading supply of electrical power and technology that was designed in an entirely different era. And that is what makes the idea of a strange signal from Voyager so unsettling. Imagine receiving a transmission from a spacecraft that should be slowly falling silent. Instead of ordinary scientific measurements, imagine finding an unusual pattern buried inside the data. A signal that appears repetitive, structured, almost as if someone, or something, had deliberately arranged it. At first, engineers would have an obvious explanation: aging electronics, radiation damage, software errors, weak power systems. After nearly 50 years in space, Voyager has every reason to behave strangely. But what if the pattern kept appearing? What if different instruments seemed to point toward the same anomaly? And what if the signal appeared to contain mathematical relationships that looked far too organized to be ordinary noise? That is where our story enters the realm of speculation. Because there is no confirmed evidence that Voyager has discovered an alien transmission or been contacted by an unknown intelligence. But the real spacecraft has already experienced genuine communication problems. In 2023, Voyager 1 began sending back unusable telemetry because of a problem affecting its flight data system. Engineers eventually traced the issue and worked around it, demonstrating just how fragile communication becomes when a spacecraft is billions of kilometers away. Yet imagine a different scenario. Suppose a strange repeating pattern appeared in the data. Then another instrument detected something unusual. And then another. Suddenly, scientists would have to ask an extraordinary question. Are we looking at a malfunction? Or are we seeing something that our current models cannot explain? Voyager has already crossed a boundary that few human machines were ever expected to reach. It is studying the thin environment between the stars, a region filled with particles, magnetic fields, and radiation unlike anything found near Earth. And that environment itself is still full of unanswered questions. So what happens if Voyager encounters something we have never seen before? Perhaps it would not be a civilization. Perhaps it would not even be an object. It could be a strange interaction between magnetic fields, plasma, radiation, or distant stellar activity. Something completely natural, but completely unexpected. And if the signal appeared to contain a pattern, scientists would face an even bigger challenge. Before calling it a message, they would have to prove that nature, spacecraft hardware, and human-made interference could not explain it. That process could take years. But suppose, for a moment, that every ordinary explanation failed. Then Voyager's faint signal would become more than data. It would become a question. And the answer might be hidden somewhere in the darkness ahead. The deeper Voyager travels into interstellar space, the more fascinating its mission becomes. Not because the spacecraft is secretly being controlled by something unknown, but because it is entering an environment humanity has barely explored. Now imagine that its instruments detect an unusual region ahead. There are no obvious stars nearby. No giant planet. No visible explosion. Just a subtle disturbance in the surrounding magnetic field. Then the pattern changes. A second measurement appears. And then a third. Scientists compare the observations with everything they know. Could it be a plasma wave? A magnetic field interaction? Radiation from a distant stellar event? Or simply an aging spacecraft producing misleading measurements? Every possibility would have to be tested. This is how real science works. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And that is where the real Voyager story becomes more interesting than any fictional mystery. Voyager does not need to discover an alien civilization to change our understanding of space. It only needs to find something unexpected. The spacecraft has already shown us that the boundary between our solar system and interstellar space is far more complicated than scientists once imagined. Its measurements have helped researchers study cosmic rays, magnetic fields, and the environment surrounding our solar system. And the spacecraft continues sending information despite having been designed nearly half a century ago. That alone is extraordinary. Now picture a future transmission. A sequence of measurements arrives from Voyager. At first, it looks ordinary. Then scientists notice a repeating structure. They run the data through different analysis methods. The structure remains. They check for known spacecraft artifacts. Nothing explains it. They compare it with astronomical observations. Still nothing. At that moment, nobody could honestly say, "We found aliens." But they could say something just as scientifically important. "We found something we don't understand." And that sentence has driven astronomy forward for centuries. The universe is filled with phenomena that once seemed impossible. Black holes. Neutron stars. Gravitational waves. Planets orbiting other stars. Even the existence of planets beyond our solar system was once unknown. Voyager represents something deeper than a machine. It represents humanity's willingness to send a fragile piece of technology into an enormous unknown and wait patiently for whatever information comes back. Maybe one day its final transmission will contain nothing mysterious at all. Maybe it will simply grow weaker until the signal disappears. Or perhaps, somewhere along its journey, Voyager will provide another observation that forces scientists to rethink what they believed about interstellar space. And that possibility is enough to keep us listening. Because Voyager is still traveling. Still measuring. Still carrying a tiny record of humanity into the darkness. And somewhere far beyond the familiar planets, its journey continues into a region no human has ever visited. The real mystery isn't whether Voyager has already found aliens. The real mystery is this: what will humanity discover when we finally learn how to listen to the universe carefully enough? Voyager may not have an answer yet. But it is still asking the question. And perhaps that is where the next chapter of exploration begins. But there is another reason Voyager's journey matters. Every signal it sends across the enormous distance between the spacecraft and Earth takes time to reach us. When scientists receive new information from Voyager, they are not simply watching what is happening right now. They are receiving a message from a machine that has spent decades traveling through an environment no human has ever physically experienced. That makes every measurement valuable. A tiny change in particle density could reveal something about the boundary of our solar system. A shift in the magnetic field could tell scientists more about how our sun interacts with the space between stars. Even a strange reading that turns out to be nothing more than a hardware problem can teach engineers how spacecraft behave after decades in deep space. And perhaps that is the most remarkable part of Voyager. It does not need to find a mysterious object. It does not need to encounter an alien civilization. It does not need to send back an impossible image. Its greatest achievement may simply be continuing to explore where humanity cannot yet go. One day, Voyager's power will become too weak to operate its remaining instruments. Its transmitter will eventually fall silent. The spacecraft will continue moving, long after Earth can no longer communicate with it.